Hi, welcome to Kat's podcast. I am Kat, your host, and this is going to be part 6 of my testimony. I'm going to be talking fast because I got a lot here that I want to get through today. I remember when everything started getting spiritually weird and evil. It was like everybody around knew what was going on but me. I was watching things that my ex was doing, and I would ask people if they knew what it was, and you could tell that they knew more than what they were telling me. Like, he was incarcerated a lot, and he would send letters and pictures home to me and my daughter, and I had them at home where I saved them. When he had gotten home, he would act like really weird, and he would be writing, which he never did at home. And I would ask him what he was writing, and he'd say nothing. But every time I would walk by, it was like he would try to hide it from me. You know what I mean? He didn't want me to see. So later on, I waited and picked up one of the papers that he was writing on, and it was a picture he had previously sent to my daughter from jail. Well, all over the picture that was already there, he was drawing eyes, sets of eyeballs, like multiple sets of two eyeballs everywhere. Also, he, we had he had this big mirror in the closet that he had pulled out of the closet, and he was carrying it everywhere with him, like he was protecting it, shielding it. Um, and one time I caught him watching TV up close, and there wasn't even anything on the TV. It was like it was in between channels, but he was all into whatever he was seeing. But I don't know if I previously mentioned, but he had found a box of safety glasses downstairs that was my dad's from his work, and he would take those safety glasses and position them all around the mirrors that we did have up there, like as two sets of eyes everywhere looking at you. Later, or wait a minute, one time he was carrying that big mirror around, protecting it and stuff. He went to open the door as if he was going to go downstairs and take it downstairs. I said, "What are you doing? You're not allowed to be down there." I was like, "What, do you want to take the mirror downstairs?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "You don't want to get caught here. I'll take it for you." He said, "Really?" I said, "Really, where do you want me to put it?" He said, "Just put it down at the bottom of the stairs." So I grabbed the mirror, and all with one big thrust, I threw that mirror down them stairs as to bust in a million pieces. You would have thought that I took a freaking sword and drove it straight into his heart. It just killed him. Later, I found out, much, much later after this, that people that are into dark magic and stuff, if they take mirrors, four mirrors or something like that, and they face them toward each other, it creates a portal to like the underworld, hell, whatever you want to call it. The eyes and glasses represented the eyes of demonic creatures, for them to see through and spy on you, I guess. It sounds crazy and off the wall, I know, but people really, really do this. One time when he was in jail, one of his, or I was at one of our friends' house, and I just started noticing certain people that would act like this, most like he was doing that time, like they were possessed almost. Because I was dealing with it so much with him, I it caused me to notice and be aware when certain people that we hung out with was doing the same thing. Well, I was at these people's house, and they started acting that same way. And back then, I was scared. It scared me. It really, literally scared me because these people would literally be demonic and evil, as if I didn't notice, but I did. I got so scared, I didn't even want to drive out of there. I felt like if I was to leave, I was going to get pulled over or something, and there was probably going to be something in my car that I didn't put in there. So I got even scared to pull out of there. I didn't know what was going on, but it wasn't right. I did know that. That's a friend of mine called the house right after I'd hung up from my mom telling her I was scared to drive out of there. And she didn't even know the guy, but she asked him if he thought he might be able to come and pick me up. And he asked why. And she stated, "I don't know what is going on, but something is going on." And I was really scared, and I wouldn't even drive, and she was very concerned. I remember there were two males and a female at this place besides me, and even friends that lived across the street were acting weird and wouldn't even answer their door. So I was standing outside, staying in the yard beside my vehicle. I wasn't about to go in where they were because no telling what would have happened. But when when my mom, I didn't know that my mom had asked my friend to come pick me up. Well, he pulled up. I was shocked and so relieved. He got out and asked if I wanted to leave my vehicle there and ride with him. I was like, okay, thank you. Well, these people seemed angry about this. So the two guys started talking to him and they started walking behind the house and they told my friend to come here and follow them because they wanted to show him something. They were around back, out of my sight, and my friend was like, okay, and he was about to cut the corner to where he would have been out of my sight, and I hollered his name, and he turned around and looked at me and said, "What?" And I just motioned with my arms as like, "Come here," but my mouth I went, "Don't go." And he looked to the backyard, and he turned back around to look at me again. I went, "Don't go," and he said, "Okay," and he came back towards me fast, and I said, "Get in the car, let's go." And we jumped in the car and we left. Um, Immediately, wait a minute. Oh, you could immediately see that he started to feel the way that I was feeling. Something wasn't right. He said, okay, and we left. Anyway, let's see. We headed to his place, which was about 30 minutes away. He and I talking about everything, and I said, I don't know why, but it just wasn't right. They didn't have good intentions for me or him. When he showed up, he agreed. He felt it all too. When we walked into his place, the TV was playing where he had left it on, and it was on a breaking news about a really bad accident on a highway close to where we were, and a car crossed over the middle and hit another car head on, causing an explosion, and a woman and a 4-year-old kid was killed instantly, and the driver of the other car was being taken into custody. Um, I looked at him and was like, wouldn't that be something if that was them guys or that guy that was back there? And he just looked at me, and my phone rang. I answered the phone, and it was the female of the place where we had just left. And the one guy that was back there first, calling him back, it was him that was in that accident. Me and that guy looked at each other in shock, and we was just like, "Oh my gosh, what is going on?" You know, this is something I had found out much later as well, and actually just recently. It is a group in this area where I'm from. It's a secret society, cult, something like that, of covens of witches and warlocks. They target people who have no support group, who have been rejected from society or had issues with the church and quit the church. Not only like this, but there are police and judges and everything that are a part of this group. There are a lot of them, and they do have spiritual gifts. Some of them do have spiritual gifts and use it for the bad side and not the good. They actually pose as being religious as to help people, but they're like a group of narcissists who are really serving the devil. It's like the devil and all his minions. They're doing something with children that isn't good. They get adults and teens and up that feel alone, abandoned, rejected, or whatever. They they sell a story of helping these people out, like they will help them get their lives together and such. And once they get them in there, they lure them in so that they can have them to sign a paper to sell their soul. Some are used for gang stalking, bullying, robbing, whatever. Some are used to be put in human trafficking to sell for sexual operations. The kids, I'm sure we can all imagine what they use those for, what the kids for. Some are pulled into to this just for the pure fact of getting insurance policies on them and cooking up scams to where it looks as though they died of some certain natural causes or whatever, but really they were used for sacrifice. These people, once you're in their system, they target you and even set people up and have these certain officers that are in the group to be the ones to lock you up, pull you over, whatever. Um, on all these false charges and such. But what can you do? Yes, people, it is this bad out here. These people by day seem as good citizens out, but out in the dark, they are straight evil. Every single person is important. They are to profit no matter what, because there is some sort of a way that they will profit off of you. I got free from this ex. I was speaking about I met someone who is a part wait a minute. As soon as I got free from this ex, I was talking about when I someone who is a part of this group. I started talking to someone who was part of this group. My bad. Little did I know that he was in this group and was doing spells, rituals, hexes against me and some of my family members, along with my mother's church, this whole time. This group serves an entity in the Marine Kingdom, and they have targeted me because they want me to be a part of this group, because they have tried to sacrifice me, recruit me, whatever. Wait a minute, all they've tried and all have I have not went along with this program. So the way I understand it is a big bunch of them are witches and warlocks, and their tactics are backfiring on them, and are they are not liking it. They've done spells and somehow spiritually bind me to them. So they feel as I am their property, only because they somehow steal people's energy, and certain people have abundance and prosperity, good fortune, wealth, etc. They need certain people's energies to so they can use them the energy for their good. One of my exes has literally offered me up to this entity, and they have tried everything to make something happen to me so that they have poisoned me. They have tampered with my vehicle. To one time I was driving on one tightened lug nut on my front tire. How? I don't know. It was God. I do know how. He would make the dryer to where every time you would touch the dryer or the washer, it would shock you so bad. I mean, it should have killed me, which I'd done that 2 or 3 times. And he would get different washers and dryers, and still he would still have them rigged to do the same. How in the heck did my truck even drive on one lug nut? That's what they can't understand either. It is God. When my daughter turned 9 years old, and she was given two options, one was to die, and the other was to be severely brain damaged. I prayed to God to save her, and He did. He did it in a way that was completely obvious that He is the one who did it, and He did it in a way you couldn't deny that it was a miracle. And I will forever be grateful to Him for this. He instantly healed her, and she had already stroked out and didn't know any of us. And when I prayed to Him, He instantly brought her back, and He brought her back even smarter than what she went in. So those two options that they said she had, they didn't realize the power of my God. That's why now I do walk by faith in God and not by the way it appears in the world. I told God, because of what He had done for me, and being that I have already suffered so much, that I would take all of the suffering that any of my kids or their kids would have to endure, if He would just let it be possible that for them to just never have to know, see, or acknowledge the pain and suffering that I know exists in this world. I want so much for Him to know that I have complete and total faith in Him and Him alone, that I wanted to do something for Him that was huge and would show Him that I do have so much faith in Him and love for Him. I would go forth into places no one else will, as long as I knew He was with me, guiding me, and protecting me. I want to do something huge for Him. I just protect me and mine, and that's all I needed. This group is so huge that they force people into certain situations to where you almost feel there is no other choice but to surrender. But they will make your life a living hell if not. They will legally, by the justice system, take your home, take your life, your belongings. They will take your children, take your freedom, and set it up in a way to look as though this is all you're doing when it was set up the whole time. I'm telling you, they did it to me. They've tried sacrificing me in ways that no one has ever es- escaped, but I have. God showed them right in their face, and they are tripping, yet working extra hard and overtime to figure out how and why and etc. But they do not believe in God, and if they do not believe that He is more powerful than who they serve and their huge group. They feel as though they are way too powerful for even God. They control so much here on this planet, in this realm, that they are more powerful than God in their minds. Well, I'm here and I am proof that what they've done and all the powers and tactics and such that they have always worked for them every single time. That has always worked for them every single time before. For some strange reason, it has not worked on me. I just want them to know that it is due to one reason and one reason only. God Almighty Himself, my Father Elohim, my Savior Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit living right here on the inside of me. I was abused by this recent ex when it's a part of, or I was abused by this recent ex who is a part of this group, and he was given a no contact order to not be around me. So he still never listened to the judge's orders, and he came and asked me and used the no contact order as a way to tell me that I had to leave my home, the one that which I made livable, I paid for, I created even more than he did. But the agreement he and I had on paper was suspiciously, mysteriously stolen from a briefcase of all my important papers that I had under the bed. He makes it my punishment to have to leave my home because he abused me, and he wanted to move in the neighbor witch next door, who was supposed to have been my friend. And they went in after getting police assistance to put me out of my home with all of my belongings there and letting them go as far as changing the locks and everything. Now, mind you, he hasn't even lived there all year because this girl that I'm speaking of, she knew a man who was having health issues, and she used to prostitute to him. Well, she seen that this man, she seen him as an opportunity to try and get put on his will and get what he had before he passed. Well, she was told by this man that if she would move in with him, be the prostitute once again until he did decease, or that he would consider. She couldn't do that and stay at that place. She was already staying with a guy, which was my neighbor, working on him and his stuff already, and she'd done been too far into it. Plus, being the neighbor to my guy at the time, who she was working on him as well, getting my stuff. Let's see. Let me get to where I was at. Let's see. It's hard to be in three places at one time. So she talks the guy that I was with into moving in with that man out there and to helping him and taking or thinking that that would be enough for that guy. Well, it wasn't. That man stated to her in front of me that he didn't want that guy that I was with to even be around him unless someone else was around because he didn't trust him. He didn't feel good about him either. That man right before he died, he actually I ran out of gas on the side of the road, and he was the one that came to pick me up. And when he picked me up, he stated to me that let's see, he made it clear that she was not going to be put on any will of his, nor get anything that was his, because she was not going to follow through with the deal that he had told her. And he knew he was no longer going to live in the illusion that she might. Right after that is when he died. I know they poison people because they have poisoned me, and I wouldn't doubt if they checked that he might have been poisoned as well. I've always felt that way. And as soon as he died, this girl and my ex started cleaning him out. I mean, hauling everything as they possibly could get on a pull behind trailer, and as fast as they were getting it, they were selling it. This all being after the police done showed up at this home with the son-in-law of the deceased, telling my ex that he needed to leave. That would be the best thing. He tried to say that he lived there, but he had no mail to prove it. Yet the following week, telling the police that he lived at our place, total opposite of what he was claiming, as a way of locking the doors with different locks on me. They were the ones who have been living there. Hold on. They were the ones who had been living there and not me. Okay. And the police put me out. I even made this aware to the police. Now I hear the girl and my ex having access to all of that man's things. Found a will and took upon themselves to rewrite and redo the will, leaving it to her instead of whoever he left it for. I actually heard he left it all to me. I don't know how true that is, but I do believe it because he wanted to make sure that neither of them got it, because he knew what their intentions were and probably knew that what they were planning to get rid of him, just and it made him aware of their true intentions for me as well, because we were both experiencing and going through the same things. I believed he probably did leave it to me because that would have been the ultimate justice for everyone involved. So she and he stole everything he had in and around or close to his property that was movable, and made a false will that has obviously been made legal because, like I stated earlier, there are certain police officers, judges, and court clerks who already are a part of this group. They work where they do in order to see these things through, this evil, thievery, and incorrect, unjust, illegal dealings, in order to be able to rob the citizens in such deceitful and unlawful ways. It's a part of the Illuminati, but it's a lower areas that control cities and towns, but goes all the way up to President Biden, Hillary Clinton, and those. The same group. It's the same evil. It's all the same. They have it covered from the top to the bottom. People, we are in the last days. The Bible warns us of all this demonic evil, self-serving ways, and it is happening and it is going on. It started in Hollywood long ago, but what no one realized is it started here too. I know people who have been run out of town, people whose vehicles have been blown up next to their homes by their children's bedrooms, and no relief from the police department because, in all actuality, it was set up by them to be done so that this person would do everything they expected him to do and go after the guy who did it to kill him, because both people were considered unworldly and unworthy and of being around. They wasn't wanted around, so this would kill two birds with one stone. And the genius part of it all was to set it up to where they would do it to each other. Just can you only imagine the bigger and more significant areas that must be planned and executed? And can you just only imagine what's already been done and what's being done? Okay, I'm trying fast. These same two people who targeted this man and also targeted me have went as far as making false police reports, accusations on me, and having me gang stalked and harassed, and literally tried to have me killed. This girl has went after at anyone she has acknowledged that I was previously or with, or even ones that she thought that I had interest in for the future. She had partnered up with this ex who wasn't an ex at the time, but because of her, now he is. This guy I was dating at the time, after that, she ruined that relationship. She went to my ex-husband, the one who I was previously speaking about, the abuse. When he was released from jail, he told me with his own mouth that she paid him $200 to have sex with him, and He's he said first thing she said was, "Well, you're Cat's ex, so what is it about you?" Only concerned with why they were with me. He now is locked up, but keeps in touch with this girl. He told me that when he was over at her house, that all the witches would come over there and they would do um, where they would. She had an altar and they would perform rituals and things involving group sex and something called a demonic shower. He told me that he took a demonic shower. I didn't know what he was talking about, nor did I want to know. So she is with the guy I was living with. She is messing with the ex I was previously speaking about. She broke up the relationship I was in with someone I cared deeply for. And just this past Thanksgiving, when they illegally had me legally put out of my home, she went to this guy and I was seen and she went to this guy that I was seeing and has been for a year and had been for a year. Still to the day, she is doing whatever necessary to keep me from even having the opportunity to speak to him. She went for a friend of mine who was married and helped ruin his family and marriage, all because she thought that I wanted him. I did not, but after a minute, I made the comment to my ex, "Oh, please don't let her take him from me. He's really the one I really love. I just been trying to act like everyone else was, but he's really the one because I didn't want nobody to know that he was truly the one I wanted." She immediately got on it, ruined the guy's marriage, broke up their family, and it broke his wife's heart so bad that she actually recently passed away. She was younger than I was, even. This is the witch I've been dealing with. They've stolen my driver's license twice, and I can only imagine what they've used that for. Right before I was taken to court and put out of my home by what was already planned and set up for to happen, there was police and a group of people who stayed in my woods behind my house at all times trying to harass and scare me enough that I would just leave. They went as far as to having my phone hacked, my Facebook hacked, and my internet hacked. When I had gotten so scared, I tried to call for help. They would not even allow me to get out to call for help. I tried getting on Facebook to ask for help, and everything I would type, they changed it. I wouldn't leave the house unless absolutely necessary, and when I did, it was actually just to the dollar store down the street. But when I did, the police would come and pull into the dollar store every time, not coming in to shop, but to sit there as to keep an eye out for me to radio back when I was headed home. I know they were in my house at a couple different times because I feel every single time they were, but I can only prove two. There was a pair of gloves left sitting on my kitchen dining room table, and when with further investigation, the back room, the board that was next to the air conditioner that was in the window, it was gone and the curtain was sticking out the window. So I posted that to Facebook, and then another time my medicine was loose. There was some loose medicines of mine on the floor in an area where I never have my medication, and I had just cleaned that room and vacuumed up the floor and everything. So I don't know what they were planning to do with that. I believed I believe they had cameras and everything on me because they certain people always knew exactly what I was doing, exactly when I was doing it. One evening, I ordered food from the Taco Bell on the Taco Bell online app. Well, I went to get it as usual. When I went to get it, but as usual, when I was pulling out, I seen a bunch of flashlights coming out of the woods toward the house as usual, and from the neighbors, that girl that I'm speaking about. I stopped, turned around, and where they frozen and turned their lights off. While I hurried up and pulled into the yard, flashing my lights and blowing the horn, letting them all know, "I see you. You're not inconspicuous, and I am not scared." Well, I decided not to even go get my food. Right before 2 a.m., when it was time for Taco Bell to close, never has this happened before, but I was hacked, remember? So I got a message from Taco Bell. "You need to come get your food before we close within the next 15 minutes. I knew they were trying to get me to leave. When I left, I seen flashlights as usual coming from the woods to the house, but I knew there was nothing I could do, so I figured I would just rush down here, grab my food, and rush back. When I got to the main highway, I could see the main store and the only store open all night in town, and there was only one vehicle there, and it was parked on the side to where you could really hardly see it. The worker wasn't even inside; he was standing out front by himself. And when I got to the light, he turned his head toward that parked vehicle as to say, "Here she comes." I take it that's what he said anyway. Well, when I got to the light and turned beside them, they backed out and pulled in behind me. There was actually no one on the roads until when I turned by that store heading to Taco Bell. The vehicle backed out and got behind me. Then there was one vehicle coming off of this highway that goes out to the country. And I noticed that vehicle was the girl, my neighbor girl. Um, um, when, wait a minute, behind, that one car pulled in behind me, yet it didn't stop I stopped at the drive-thru to tell them I was there to get my food. Well, when I come on around through the drive-thru. They followed me on around, but they didn't stop in the drive-thru. The one who was driving, they just um, slowly went past me and pulled into a parking spot right in front of me. I seen two men in there. The one man who was driving, I recognized as the neighbor Mel, whom the girl lived with. They just pulled up in a parking spot ahead of me to where the one on the left, I had to, so that when I left, I would have to pass right beside them. I seen them both moving around in the truck, and the guy in the passenger seat pulled a hoodie up onto his head. I swear I felt like they were going to shoot me or whatever when I went beside them. So after getting the food, instead of passing them, I did a quick U-turn and went to the opposite side of the restaurant, still afraid to pull out because that's where they were parked at. It was at the exit. I stopped for a second, and all of a sudden I just punched it, and instead of pulling out and then out toward the highway, I pulled out through this parking lot of closed restaurants and businesses. Then I went behind the town grocery store, everything which was closed, of course. Um, and we were literally the only ones in town at all. I turned on that highway that I mentioned previously that goes into the country, but I didn't go toward the country. I was coming back out to the stop sign in town. When I seen them where they had pulled out, they were getting ready to pass in front of me, but they slowed down to such a slow pace as to make make me to turn in front of them. It got so slow they pretty much stopped in front of me for me to turn in front of them. I wasn't gonna do it, so I hurried up and pulled out the opposite way, headed out of town. When I seen that their lights were out of sight, I hurried up and whipped to the left into a housing complex where we live, and I just flew straight through there all the way up to about the middle way of town, and I was going to go down and hit this one light. When Once I hit that light, I knew it was two streets up was the way to my house. I was almost home. Well, when I got to that light, that one vehicle I said that my neighbor female was in, it passed by, going real slow, as to see if I was going to turn up that one road that I said that two streets away. Well, because I seen how slow it was going, I didn't turn on that street. I went straight on up. And when I seen their lights get out of sight, I hurried up and cut to the left. And I was like, well, there's no police in town. Shouldn't be no worry about being caught for speeding. So I flew up that street, cut on the street that goes to my road, which was a dead end. And I lived at the very end. Got on my street, flew down there, jumped out, got into the house. And once I did, I heard a car pulling in. Um, It was it was the one that had been following me through town with my neighbor in it, and they were so angry that when they left, they peeled out in my gravel and everything. Made it well known that they were very not happy about it. Let's see. Okay, they made it very very hard for me to even get help rerouting me, rewriting my messages. But would you believe a message come through right at that moment on my Facebook Messenger, and it just so happens it came from someone I don't even know. Couldn't be someone I know, seriously. See, they said, "Hey." I said, "Hey." They asked how I was doing, how was I doing? I said, pretty. I said, not so good. They was telling me what a beautiful girl I was and how was I doing. I was like, not so good, but thanks. They said, why? What's wrong? I said, I'm just a little stressed at the moment. And they asked me why. I said, oh, just dealing with an ex who has no contact order with me, and I was pretty sure that he just had something to do with the people following me through town and home, and it scared me. They asked, well, what are you going to do if I come back? I said, excuse me? He said, I mean, what are you going to do if he comes back? I said, oh no, you must have misunderstood me when I said I'm scared. When I said I'm scared, I didn't mean I was scared of him. I meant I'm scared of what's going to happen to him if he does come back, because there's no telling what I might do to him. He was like, huh. Then I blocked and deleted him. Every night, these people harassed me. They did their best to scare me and run me out of there, and it was pitiful. There was no way I was going to allow it. Now I'm at my parents', staying in a camper out back. They took everything that I had. They came out a few times when I first got here, and I noticed that my neighbors across the street were part of it. So I just advertised it on Facebook and made sure that everybody knew that my neighbors across the street, so that they would know that I knew it was them as well, were part of it as well. As soon as I did, the neighbors left. Everyone left me alone for a minute. Until the other day, they tried coming for me the other day, my ex, the girl, and another girl, and God knows who else. But when I stood 10 toes down, ready, spooking their whole operation, I had just left the place where everyone was, and while I was there, I guess they were planning to sneak over to my place, come through the woods, and get situated somehow into their spots. Well, I left right after them. They didn't know, of course, or expect it. So when I got home and they got spooked and run some, and I'd run someone. Some of them had let. They took off running. Well, one had must have got left behind, because they kept driving back and forth in the same car, and every time they got ready to rev in their engine as to, we're coming by, where are you at? And someone here in the woods would whistle. So every time they did, I'd laugh at them and I'd whistle. And one time their phone even started ringing. I'm like, ha, you got your dunce hat on, goofy, busted, you know what I mean? And I'm like, how you going to get over there to them? But anyway, I said, you dumbasses. I said, the whole time you've been focused on me, the FBI's been focused on you. And I called the guy where I was at, and I was texting him, telling him, it's telling him the same thing. Well, why y'all been focused on me? The FBI's been focused on you. It startled him enough that he called straight through, trying to tell me distance himself from these people and what was going on. Well, we'd hung up, and the vehicle kept going back through and everything, and I left him a message saying, it you need to just go ahead and tell the one that got left behind it's best if they just leave them here, because I'm not going to allow them to be able to stop and pick up the person, whoever it is. And it was that same car that was at his house doing it here. And he texted me and said, yeah, sounds like your mind might be slipping, but that's what happens with age. Now, this man's older than me, but I said, yeah, you're probably right. I said, but murder is a pretty huge thing for some important people to be focused on. Other, or, but murder is a pretty huge thing for some important people to be focused on some people about, especially if they about ready to haul in all the murders, tag them up, and put them where they belong. He got so angry and said, don't you text me no more unless you got something sensible to say. Not realizing he was the one who texted me. I did text him though, however, later a few more times, because I was stationed here next to the one that was hiding in the woods, making comments and laughing at him and everything. When they whistle, I'd whistle.